So welcome back. And again, I really appreciate your support of my YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, I definitely suggest you do. Also suggest you follow me on Twitter, which is simply twitter.com, and I'll have a link for this in the bottom, twitter.com/think, learn, earn. And also there's a Facebook, fb.com/think, learn, earn. Okay, now we're going to talk about what's called CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. Now, if you're taking a course in Dreamweaver, either in person or in a group or a corporate training class or even some videos, it's like they almost tease you until 5 hours later they're talking about CSS. Well, I want to get into CSS right away because it's really, really quite simple and it's really easy to do and understand if you know how to do it. And again, my objective is to get you to think the way the software thinks. So CSS stands for, say that 5 times fast, Cascading Style Sheets, which means it cascades down like a waterfall. It's a parent-child relationship. Now, for those of you that are desktop publishers or print designers and work in PageMaker or Quirk Express or InDesign, etc., or FrameMaker, you have what's called style sheets. It's sort of the same thing, but see, the style sheets for desktop publishing doesn't have any kind of rule structure. You can basically call a style whatever you want. Now, you can ID something inside of Dreamweaver or CSS for the web with ID tags, but you have to use the actual naming of the tag to create a rule for that tag. You can't just call something strongs, as an example, if the name of the tag is strong. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, if you look at this page for a second, I did mention in a previous video that Dreamweaver defaults and browsers default to Times Roman 16 pixels. Well, that's nice. So if you wanted to have a website that was Times Roman 16 pixels, there you go. You're looking at it right now. But there's more to the program than that. And of course, there's more ways we can style our content. So the first thing we're going to do here, and again, if your styles palette is not up there, we're going to go to Window, CSS Styles. Yeah, I've done this before. Yeah, that's it. Also, make sure you have all selected, not current selected. You want to have all selected. I'm going to move this down here and move this up a little bit so you can see the property palette. Now, listen to my exact vocabulary on this. When you're trying to sleep tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning, I want you to hear my voice saying, drum roll please, select the tag, make a rule. Select the tag, make a rule. Select the tag, make a rule. In order to affect the tag, we need to select the tag. In order to affect that sandwich, we need to select that sandwich. In order to select that Diet Coke, affect that Diet Coke, we need to select that Diet Coke. Ladies and gentlemen, software is exactly the same thing. And many of you get frustrated when things don't happen inside of software because you broke the rule of selecting. You have to select in order to affect. So select the tag, make a rule. What the heck do I mean by that? Well, we want to select the body tag. I'm just selecting the body tag by clicking right there. That's my tag selector. If I wanted to select the paragraph tag, I would click right there for that particular paragraph, which of course is going to affect all the paragraphs. So I understand something. Just by selecting this paragraph doesn't write a rule just for that paragraph. It makes a rule for this tag selector, which is P. I just want to be very clear about that. So I'm going to select the body tag, select the tag, and come right over here. Now, I want to share with you the exact vocabulary that the software uses. I don't use semantics. I don't call it this if it's supposed to be called that. I call things exactly what they should be called. The thing I get upset about is I do see some other online videos, and the first one will be, okay, what you want to do is go over here to your settings. Well, where does it say the word settings? Now, yes, you and I understand the vernacular of the city. Yes, settings. Yeah, I kind of gets the same thing, but that's going to get very confusing to a software program because the software program only understands what it was programmed to understand. So do yourself a favor, learn to know exact terminology that the software understands. Don't spin it or put your own interpretation on it, etc., etc. So we're going to select the tag, come over here, and what does this say right now? It says new CSS rule. Good. That's what we're going to do. We're going to create a rule for our tags versus rules. Do not confuse the tags with the rules. These are the tags over here to the left. These are the rules I'm going to create in my CSS styles palette. So I'm going to click right here and make a new CSS rule for what I have selected. In order to affect it, I must select it. Boom. What's the name of this dialog box? Well, this dialog box is new CSS rule. Now, here's a very important step I want to share with you. First of all the CSS rules we're making until the page has been signed off by the client, and you want to write this in stone. There's so many videos out there and bad training habits that teach you to do external style sheets right away. Bad habit, not to be done. If you're building a mock-up for your client and you want to have different versions, you can't have different versions if you're tying it to the same external style sheet. So what I highly suggest you do is build your style sheets for this document only. Therefore, when you have version 1, version 2, version 3 of your document, you can have different styles to share with your client. Makes sense. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to. Right now, by default, by selecting the body tag, it selected something called compound. Compound simply means a combination tag, a combination of more than one. Now, even though I selected the body tag, Dreamweaver selected the body and the paragraph tag. I don't want to select the paragraph. I don't want to create a rule for the paragraph. I simply want to create a rule for the body tag. So based on these choices, I simply want to talk to the tag itself, the singular tag, as in tag you're it. Let's do this again. I select the tag. I come over here, make a new CSS rule, and select tag you're it. That's the tag I want, just that singular tag, not any combination of tags, which I will talk about in a subsequent video. I'm going to hit the OK button. Now, here we go. Based on these choices, what's the name of this dialog box? Well, CSS rule definition for body. Why is it writing a rule for the body? Is it psychic? No, because I selected the body, so it's affecting the body. If I selected the H1 tag, it would have wrote a rule for the H1 tag. If I selected the H2 tag, it would have written a rule for the H2 tag, etc., etc. It's really that simple. My job is to make this so incredibly simple, it's frighteningly simple. I don't want to confuse your head with a lot of cyber clutter and techno geek speak. I want to keep it real simple. But my sites are sophisticated in their simplicity. So the first thing we're going to do here is this. Based on these choices, category of type, which we're currently looking at right now, we're going to pick a font family. And I'm going to pick this particular font family. Now notice it does say the word font family. And what this basically means in a nutshell is you're picking a typeface or font family that the person has on their computer. Now, you assume that they have this typeface, but if they don't, it will default to this typeface. And if they don't have that on their computer, it will default to this typeface, etc., etc. The worst case scenario, based on these rule selectors saying, hey, give me a sans serif typeface. Sans being the French word for without serifs, without little hooks, or a block typeface. So there's serif typefaces and there's sans serif. There's also script typefaces as well. Now, it'd be very foolish of me to come here and make this 16 pixel. Why? Because it is 16 pixels. I just changed the font size, or the font family here. So as an example, if I was to get rid of that 16 pixels and hit the apply option, you would see that it didn't change, because that's what it defaults to. So again, I want you to write this down. And if you're watching this on Udemy, you can write yourself a little note on the top right-hand corner. Don't do redundancies. As an example, 16 pixels would be a redundancy. Making this type black would be redundancy. It is black. I don't want to make black. I don't want to make the green traffic light green. I don't want to get up the step ladder and get out my overalls and painting hat and brush and get all the way up there and go, oh, I guess it's green already. Don't make redundancies. Just don't do that. As an example, the font weight is normal. So don't make it normal. The font style is normal, so don't make it normal. So why are these available? Those are available to override my default settings from a previous CSS rule that I may have written, which we'll talk about in great detail in the rest of the course, which again is free on udemy.com. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make this, just because we can, let's make this slightly smaller. Let's make this 14 pixels. And if I hit the apply option, notice that my font gets smaller. Now, for all practical purposes, the only thing we're going to do here, we're going to set the font family and the font size. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, if in fact I wanted to change that, I can do that very simply by twirling down this little triangle and double clicking, and I can go back in there and say, you know what, I didn't want that font, I wanted this font, etc., etc. Now the apply option, software that supports the apply option is a big time saver because you can actually see a preview of your changes before you hit OK. So it's very important to understand that. Now if you want to do some other basic changes, like if I wanted to change that to like 14.5, I can do that from right here as well. So that's now 14.5 pixels, not to be confused with 14. Okay, pretty cool stuff. Now, in addition to the body tag, let's set up some rules for the H1 and the H2 and the H3 tag. So as an example, unless you're making a website for geriatrics with cataracts, there's really no reason to have your typeface screaming mad, boom, loud right in front of them like this. So we're going to basically change the size of our H1 tag. And we also want to change perhaps the case. Maybe we want to make it uppercase. We also want to change the color, etc., etc. So I'm going to share with you how to make this really, and did I say really simple. Select the tag and make a rule. In order to affect the tag, I need to select the tag. Now, again, it's simply tag, you're it. So tag, HTML tag, you're it. I just want to affect that one HTML tag. And I hit OK. What's the name of this dialog box? CSS rule definition for H1. Now again, we talked about redundancies. We're not going to go back and change it to the same typeface we had a second ago because it defaults to that. It defaults to the parent. It's a parent-child relationship. In fact, again, if you want to take a note on this, anything that's blank defaults to its parent structure, its parent tag. So it'd be very foolish of me to have to re-put that in there again. Now you might say, well, what do you care if I put it in there again? Well, I don't, but you know what? Let's say you got 25, 30 rules in here, which is very common to have in a typical website. And your client decides to change the typeface. What, are you going to go back to every 25th rule and change the typeface? No. Let the CSS work for you. Let the software work for you. Work smart. Let me help you make money with your new skill set. So what we're going to do is this. Now, here's a very important step you do want to take a note on. There's something called an M space, EM. Now don't confuse the M space with the M for emphasis for the H for the italicized tag. EM. Now for those of you in the desktop publishing world, it's something called an M space. And M is equal to the height of a capital M for that particular default typeface, or whatever your default typeface is. So as an example, since we set our default typeface on the body copy to be 14 pixels, 1M equals, in this particular case, 14 pixels. If I made my body copy 27 pixels, then 1M would equal 27 pixels. Incidentally, I'm talking pixels, not points. There's 72 pixels to an inch, 36 is in a half inch, 18 is in a quarter inch. This way you understand the relevance of how big an inch is in relation to a pixel. So as an example, right now, if I wanted to change this to 2M, my H1 tag to 2M, it's going to be twice as big. It's going to be 28 pixels. 14 times 2 is 28. Now to share with you, to verify that that in fact is true, watch this. I'm going to basically say 14 because I know my base font is 14 pixels. Now here's a really cool technique that you're not going to see anyplace else. I'm going to change this back to pixels for a second. Okay? Let Dreamweaver, in fact, let most Adobe software do the heavy lifting for you by letting the software do the math for you. What? Math? How's it going to do math? Is it really? Yes. In Dreamweaver, you can divide, multiply, add, and subtract for those of you who slept through 4th grade math class. So if I know that my base font is 14 pixels and I want to make this twice as big, I can simply say 14 times 2. Boom. And if I hit the apply option, there's my 14 times 2, 28 pixels. And if I make that 2M, you will see that the font did not change. I'm sorry here, what did I just do here? My mistake there, I think I might have, because I made it 14 and a half. Okay, my mistake, I forgot I made that 14 and a half. So let's do this. My mistake on that. So let's go ahead and make that 14.5 times 2. I forgot I made that 14 and a half. My apologies. So if I hit the apply option, that makes it 29 pixels. Okay, so right now this H1 tag is 29 pixels. Now again, to demonstrate that, we're going to go ahead and make that 2M. And if I hit the apply option, you'll see that that does not change because that's exactly 1M equals whatever your base font is. Now, here's the big advantage of doing that and thinking that way. This way you can have total control over all your font sizes by knowing that everything's in relation to an M. So if I made something 1.1M, it's 10% bigger. If I made something 9.9M, it's 10% smaller. It's a really simple way to define your typeface. It's really cool. Now in addition to that, we want to change this text transformation to uppercase. We also want to make it purple. And if I hit the apply option, that's what it did. Now, important step, notice it didn't affect this, it didn't affect that, because those are not H1 tags. However, if I define that as an H1 tag by either coming down here to H1 or Command 1, then it would follow the rule structure. The rule for H1 is right there. How cool is that? Okay, so in our next video, we will basically tag the rest of our page using the strong tag and the emphasis tag and the rest of the H tags. And I'll show you how to do a combination tag separated by commas. Again, the complete series of this will be on udemy.com by clicking the link on the bottom of this description. You'll be able to see the entire course, hours and hours. And by the way, on Udemy, I add every month to 2 to 6 weeks, I add more and more, so the course completely grows and grows and grows and grows, and more techniques and more stuff and more cutting edge stuff, etc., etc. That's another advantage to basically subscribing to the Udemy channel, especially with my courses. Not all other teachers do this, but I basically maybe a little spoil my students by updating my courses on a regular basis. I will talk to you in the next video, which will go more in depth into CSS rules. Thank you for being here. My name is Robert Farrell.